As soon as we press the wine grapes, we put the pomace right back into the fermentation barrel. I no longer add water or sugar or anything like that. For me, it's too strong, and it tastes better when I do it like this. Then, as soon as possible, I fill the still to where it's supposed to be filled with pomace, cover it with hot water, and boil it up.
The best part about making grappa for me is the way it smells. Once the dripping begins, the machine does its job, and you can just smell the nuttiness, and it just smells so good. And I love to just put my finger under the parrot. Liquishy and nutty. So delicious. I started making it with this machine. I'll show you a picture of it because I don't have it anymore. A friend of mine who was an engineer suggested that I stop using that machine, and that's when I decided to go with this brew house. As far as I know, making grappa is illegal at the federal level, but not at the local level. And in a state like Massachusetts, it's legal, as long as you don't sell it. When the temperature reaches above 170, 175, the dripping begins. First dripping comes out at about 80, and I start collecting when it gets to about 65, 68, and that doesn't take too long. The first stuff I throw away because that can be blinding. I start collecting at 65, and the head I take from 50 to about 65. Then when it gets to about between 40 and 50 is the heart for me, and then anything below 40 is the tail. And then I blend them to get the flavor I want and the alcohol I want. I try to keep the water in the bucket with the pump between 50 and 70 degrees. I used to have it filled with ice all the time, but I have learned that that's not necessary. When the water coming out of the still is hot, I let it run out to the ground. When it becomes cool again, I put it back into the bucket. Not unusual for a fruit fly or two to go in and take a sip, but unfortunately they can't swim, so they end up being stuck. But that's not a problem. When I pour the grappa into a gallon, I just use a sieve. As the sun sets, so does the alcohol level in the grappa. It's down to 20%, and the tail is cloudy, but the taste is still pretty decent, and there's no burnt taste at all. So I'm going to collect a little bit more. I prefer to use the tail to make the blend I like, instead of using distilled water, and I like to get a grappa at about 25 to 30% alcohol. I have friends who like it at 51%, so I can set aside a couple of bottles for them. But I age it in oak barrel, which softens it and gives it a little bit of color. And I also like to infuse it with marijuana leaves and beer hops, and I'll post some pictures of that at the end of this video. And I aged the grappa in this little oak barrel.